Hello and welcome back to TNWKS, the Now We Know show, the show where we discuss a topic of interest and by the end we will have learned something new and hopefully you will too. I'm Zak.
And I'm Buzz, and in this week's episode we're going back to the conspiracy theories. Dun, 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 dun. Yep, and we are going to be talking all about the Great Reset.
Hello and welcome to TNWKS.
No, that's not what I mean.
Okay.
It's all about the conspiracy theory known as the Great Reset.
Yes, sounds exciting. Let's find out what that's all about. If you enjoy the Now We Know Show podcast, support Zak Wylde Productions on Patreon or join our members on YouTube for early access, ad-free content and exclusive episodes. So, before we find out all about what the Great Reset... I love it, I have to say it like that.
The Great Reset.
It's time for...
Weird
and Wonderful!
Yeah, I like starting off the show on a high note, especially when we're dealing with a subject that could ultimately turn out to be kind of depressing. I don't know.
A complete fallacy. We don't know.
We shall see as we go along discussing the Great Reset.
The ins and outs of it, yes.
As you say, it's Weird and Wonderful time. So I've got the Weird and Wonderful this week.
Okay.
And this week's Weird and Wonderful, if my notes are going to actually let me read it, thank you very much.
What's the headline?
World's most prolific fossilised poo collector is now showing it off in a museum. Which actually quite self-explanatory, that one.
I thought we had gone away from the days about talking about poo and toilet humour on this podcast. I mean, come on.
Well, I've got to say that it just sort of popped up.
Wow.
And I thought, yeah, I like that one. I mean, it's good to say this is probably in the article anyway, but obviously when we're talking about fossilised poo,
Coprolite.
Coprolite. I was going to ask you if you know what that's called.
If you didn't know, it's called coprolite.
Okay.
I've got coprolite somewhere in this room.
Yeah, have you?
Yeah,
well, you've got a hidden poo somewhere. Yeah. Right. Somewhere in the tower studio, there is a coprolite.
Oh, dear.
Anyway, let me read this. Right. A man who has the largest collection of fossilised poo in the world has opened up a museum dedicated to showing it off. George Franderson's poo collection is so massive he holds the Guinness World Record for it. He's got a very huge poo collection. The museum in Williams, Arizona is appropriately named the Pooseum.
Oh my god.
The Pooseum. And George says he was motivated to open it by the glaring absence of coprolite, fossilised poo, representation in other museums. You see, so he spent 14 years working as a healthcare. He spent the past 14 years working at a healthcare company before taking a very different path and embracing his love of poo.
Well, everyone's got to have a hobby.
Exactly.
And if you can make a living from that, great.
So the Pooseum was previously a virtual resource centre since it was founded in 2014, but now people can get up close and personal with poo since it opened last month. There you go.
I hope it's just the coprolite poo. not anything fresher. Wow. Have you got any weird collections, Buzz, that you would consider opening a museum for?
I don't know. Really.
I know we've got a lot of antique swords and things like that, but
yeah.
that's coprolite by comparison is pretty niche.
Yeah, I would have thought so. In fact, he's got one. He's got the biggest poo. It's over 2 feet long. It belongs to a dinosaur.
That must have hurt.
I don't know.
I mean, depends on the dinosaur, really.
But actually visiting the Pooseum?
It's not high on my list.
No, I don't know. I'll skip your question. Actually, you said about what would if I had a museum? What would I have in a museum? Do you know? I think it's because we do a lot of Doctor Who film fan sort of films and things with Johnny Who Entertainment's a fan-based group in the UK. And it's always great fun doing the Doctor Who stuff. And we got a lot of Doctor Who memorabilia.
I mean,
I think
you can't see it on camera, but there is literally a wall of boxed Doctor Who figures right there.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's part of being up in the Tower studio. It's
full
also,
of all the fun, filmy
it's
TV things.
All the stuff we have.
We've got
collected.
more props than we know what to do with up here.
So I think if I had a museum, it would probably not original, because a lot of people have kind of Doctor Who based museums and stuff. But yeah, that would be quite fun.
Yeah.
If it was anything other than that, then I'd probably say something along the lines of movies. You know, because we're just such movie buffs.
I mean, personally, just looking around, there is so much from films, TV, popular media, all sorts. Rare and
as well as the
well known.
As well as the coprolite, I believe somewhere in here is a Chinese takeaway container that contains the mouldy remnants of a marmalade sandwich.
It sounds bad, but it's from a movie, okay?
When I was working on Paddington 2, they gave us marmalade sandwiches and they were dumping them, and I thought, you know, I'm going to take an official Paddington marmalade sandwich and bring it home for you, and then you put it in a box, and it is slowly kind of like
developed its own
ecosystem in there. Last time I saw it, it's probably, I don't know, probably got its own social hierarchy and everything by now.
Wow, I think it's in the corner over there
somewhere
by the
okay.
PS5,
and it can stay there,
or it could be in the secret compartment.
Maybe it's made friends with the coprolite. You know, who knows? Anyway.
Anyway,
that's
but back to my question that I was going to answer. I mean, it would be foolish for me not to kind of consider doing some kind of museum with the amount of stuff we've got.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got 2 full-size Daleks down by the other studio. Yeah. So
I suppose maybe expand it to kind of like sci-fi. Sci-fi and film memorabilia.
Sci-fi and movie museum.
Yeah.
And I mean, amount of physical media we've actually got. Yeah. So
that'd be good.
It'd be foolish to.
Anyway, I think we should crack on with the main thrust, so to speak, of this particular
let's reset this conversation to the idea of the Great Reset.
Okay, so the Great Reset, it's kind of it's a bit bizarre. It's probably one of the biggest and well-known conspiracy theories, but at the same time it has to be asked, is it a conspiracy theory? Because it is a thing also.
Now, I remember the first time I really heard about this, and this was on the set of EastEnders.
Oh, really?
There was a
working on good old EastEnders.
Supporting artiste that I think it was during COVID, and we had this, I think it was a conversation, it came up in conversation. That, for me, is where I first remember hearing this term used.
So when was that?
This must have been, this was kind of 2020 peak COVID time.
Interesting you should bring that up, because that is one of the sort of founding years of the actual conspiracy theory itself. So okay, so the Great Reset, kind of after doing the research on it, because you hear a lot of stuff, some of it very, very wild and wacky and other stuff. So we've got to kind of like look at its roots and discuss this, and see where it leads us.
Exactly, yeah.
But I think the roots of it start with a Danish MP known as Ida Auken, who she posted up online a thing that also has been tied in with the Great Reset, and it is a phrase which has become well known, so I think you've heard of it. Whether our listeners have, I don't know. But it's called "You Will Own Nothing But Be Happy."
Yeah,
and it was her prediction that by around 2030, that instead of you purchasing products, so you like,
I refer you to item A.
So instead of you buying, physical media, for example,
I mean, I can get a prop if you need.
No. So instead of buying physical media, as a good example, so instead of going out and saying buying a Blu-ray, a 4K, whatever. DVD. And buying a player to play that on, which is another product that you need.
4K player, PS5 up there.
So you would, instead of buying that, you would then instead rent by having a streaming service. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We've got our own kind of opinions on that, haven't we?
So instead of buying a car, such as one of the new electric cars, instead of buying a new electric car, you would rent it. You would have it on what do they call it? Lease it. Yeah. Instead of owning a house
outright,
or a flat or an apartment,
you would
rent it. So,
but I have a problem with that.
Everything goes from being a product to being a service.
Yeah, because it's like having, instead of like having like a final figure to purchase something, like the camera we're recording this on.
Yeah,
that's like
you would lease it.
You would rent that.
Yeah. So you don't actually own anything.
But that is a continual thread of money of potentially infinite.
This is kind of, if you like,
numerical value.
If this is the kind of starting point from when the conspiracy theory started, as much as I can find out, because this whole concept is, and to be honest, it is becoming a thing, that you live in a world where you own nothing, but you're happy. Whatever you need, you buy it as a service. So rather than going shopping, you obviously go online and you order your food, and your food gets delivered to you.
Yeah.
You don't need to buy a car, as I say. You might lease a car and use that. You don't own your property. You rent your property. All these things build up one thing on top. Streaming service. Everything is... So the whole concept of that part of the conspiracy theory or this great reset is that you have a society which physically owns nothing, but you're happy. But the problem is, as we can discuss further down the line, is that this kind of gets you into... how can I put it? It gets you into this hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Of you being the hamster going round and round
You've
and round.
got to keep feeding
that, because you want to have that stuff, and so when you've got your property that isn't yours, but you've got to pay for contents insurance for it, for example. You might need some health insurance. You've got car insurance.
You've got bills, electricity,
whether you rent
energy,
whether you
Wi-Fi,
rent a vehicle, you still need to have your insurance on that. You've got your Wi-Fi you've got to pay for. You've got your mobile telephone contract you've got to pay for. You've got your streaming service you've got to pay for. Blah, 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 blah. So all of that is already happening to a greater extent for a lot of people.
Exactly.
And you're going to work, and you've got to pay for it. If you commute to work, you got to, however you do that by public transport, whether you've got to pay on top of that, all your utility bills in the property that you rent. So you got to take away from your wages the amount of money that it takes you to get to and from work to actually earn that money. Then you got to take out all of the costs that we have just spoken about, to just so by the end of the month, you've paid for all these things, with hopefully something that you can save. For example, if you want those luxury things like a takeaway or going on holiday or whatever your kind of your vices are.
Well, what is it? It's like, I can't remember the term for it, but it's like stuff that's like you use it and then it's gone, like food.
Yeah, I mean
consumables.
Consumables. So, for example, you might say, well, I literally go to work 5 days a week, 6 days a week, whatever. I work all the hours. I get home in the evening. It doesn't really leave me much time to do stuff. So, I'm just going to sit down, have that consumable can of beer, that product, that bottle of that glass of wine, whatever.
Netflix.
Go. Yeah, basically, what do they call it?
Netflix and chill.
Yeah, no. Where they watch loads of it.
Binge
watch some stuff.
Yeah.
Go to bed. And then repeat the next day, and you keep repeating that in the hope that you cover all your bills and you will have something left over. If, of course, what has been happening with the cost of living crisis, if you've got a mortgage or rents, they've all escalated. The cost of food has escalated. So suddenly people have had to find that where they were paying X amount one month, it suddenly leapt and they had to find an extra £200 to £400 the following month.
Exactly.
And so that money that they might have set aside for that consumable holiday, and let's face it, people will go away on holiday and maybe spend anything from a few £100 to thousands of pounds just for a 2-week holiday, just to feel that they've broken the cycle and had some time out. Probably at a resort or somewhere where everybody else is doing the same thing. So letting the hamsters go somewhere else for a change, for a bit of a break, and they come back and start churning that wheel again.
In this idea, could you kind of equate it to like it's almost like a pay-as-you-go life cycle?
Pay-as-you-go society. Which is very much reminiscent of. Do you remember the Doctor? I'm bringing Doctor Who in, but the Doctor Who episode of the Sunmakers, where they had to literally pay for everything. Pay for where they live, oxygen, pay for their funerals, and then the guy wanted to give his father who'd passed away like a nice funeral.
Yeah.
But all the prices had gone up, and then he found that he was going to have to work that off even more, because you're not in control of how much all these things
you're
cost.
not in control of the rates.
Like all the fuel bills at the moment have gone up and everything, depending on what happens. So anyway, so you've got that. You will own nothing and be happy. But on top of that, now we come to what you said in 2020. So you have the coming together every year of the World Economic Forum, which is a completely independent group of very rich people, academic people, and big companies that aren't affiliated to any, or that they're outside of the the political
society, the political system
forum. That's it. The system. They're meant to. They're this group. They're not meant to have any political
affiliation,
power, if you know what I mean. Okay. But it is such a big organisation that is literally.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wrote a couple of notes down. To be a member of the World Economic Forum, an individual member, so if you're a really rich individual person, you'll be paying £23,000 or 23k, I don't know if it's in pounds, euros or whatever, a year. If you are a smaller company, I think it's 552,000, and a big company, it's £630,000 a year to be a member. Now, the World Economic Forum is made up of companies like Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Coca-Cola.
Yeah, I was going to say
all the major banks, pharmaceutical companies, all the super rich. Everybody's in there. Facebook, everybody is in this. And of course,
it does kind of bring up the question as to why. What is it for?
Because it's you could argue that it's the super rich and the rich companies all being in a club together to enable them to earn more money and to try and, supposedly it's outside of the political forum, but come on, I think it's fair to say that they've probably got a lot of sway with people.
They've got hands in pies.
Fingers in pies,
okay.
Hands in pockets.
Okay.
Okay, so where it's meant to be an independent group, which is meant to be there for the betterment of the world, the betterment of everybody in the world, and to help with
that's the premise,
fighting
isn't it?
Against global warming and exactly. And of course, you can take it for its face value, or with all its good intentions, or you could say, well, actually, there's a huge amount of businesses and companies there that make vast amounts of money, and they want to continue to make vast amounts of money. And it was in 2020 that Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum held in Davos.
Where is that?
Davos is in Switzerland. It's held there every year. So
now you know, show.
There we go. I thought you were going to make a joke about Davros. Then,
Davros! Of course. Why wasn't I thinking of that?
You missed your chance.
Oh,
there.
Honestly, I mean, come on.
Secretly in a bunker, they got.
Come on,
Davros.
Zach. It's all the Daleks, okay?
They're in Switzerland, right, in Davos, and you got all these huge, multi-billionaires and multi-billion
eye-watering numerations of money,
all talking about making a better world.
Yeah.
Okay. But this, I'm assuming at the moment, is like not including anything to do with Russia and probably China. I don't know if China's there actually.
It's all a bit of a.
But because of the
odd state of affairs.
Anyway,
foreign policy and stuff.
Without getting off track on that side of things, with the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab explained the idea behind the Great Reset. And
this was in 2020.
2020. At the same time, you had Prince Charles at the time, who obviously now King Charles, put a video out called The Great Reset, which was all about, because we were hit by the pandemic, that this was the perfect time to try and solve a lot of the world's problems by resetting like
Rethinking,
financial systems, restructuring social systems, and all for the betterment of everybody.
Yeah. But it's a worrying thought to think that something like that would be on the cards.
Well,
to really essentially, like,
of course, then
potentially on a fast scale, like society completely smashed to pieces and then restructured in whichever way,
well,
supposedly for the betterment.
Something like that isn't going to happen overnight.
No.
But when you consider you're talking about a time not so long ago when you couldn't go out on the streets.
Yeah.
Everybody was being controlled.
It was kind of like a nexus point for this kind of idea, wasn't
it? And it was you could almost, I mean, you can see, I have seen where conspiracy theorists felt that it was kind of like it was an organised pandemic.
Well, you're always going to get the conspiracy theorists, aren't you?
And that and even as far as saying it was just a precursor, kind of like a trial run, and things like that. Take it how you will. But the point behind it also coined the phrase "a new world order." So the whole point was you had this great reset, creating a new world order based upon this "you will own nothing and be happy" society.
Idea, yeah.
Which also brought into play the idea of the 15-minute cities or 15-minute towns, or I think in America it was 20-minute suburbs or something like that, which is all about wherever you live, that everything you need should be within a 15-minute
radius
or 20-minute radius, so you don't need to have a car. Yeah,
right.
And which means that it's almost like you're, from one side of it, you say, right, okay, so I've got all the shops I need to go to, but I'll probably order everything offline anyway. I've got all the entertainment I want through my subscriptions, or if cinemas still exist, you're going to maybe go to the cinema.
Go on, cinema.
Or you go to
You're awesome.
Pubs and clubs and things. You're going to have your be able to see the doctor, go to the surgery, go to the hospital, go to the dentist,
go to the gym.
Go to the gym. All these things in this little bubble. So you're in your bubble, and of course that's kind of a way, if you like. Then when you add to that, everybody living in that bubble are then living in this service society where you own nothing and you're happy. So all the little hamsters in that bubble are spending their days spinning the wheel to earn the money to pay for everything, just so they can get to the end of the month. Meanwhile, of course, the bigger picture is, there are interest rate rises, there are fuel cost rises, there are, food hikes, and all these things that go up and down. And so if companies, obviously to do with the World Economic Forum, can flex their muscles and cause adjustments. I was listening to a podcast by an economics advisor, and she coined this phrase, which at the time it was all like ouch, but it's quite apt really. It's like those people who are super rich, these huge companies, everything else, we can pinch the little piggies until to the point where they start to squeal. We're always looking to pinch the little piggies to the point where they squeal, to get as much money out of them. You see,
that's a horrible thing.
I know. So you get your hamsters doing that thing,
like that at all.
And of course, if people are always trying to,
if everyone is always feeling the pinch,
always trying to feel the pinch, always trying to get on top of things, but the cost of living is, and of course, you're paying out for all these services all the time, and of course, if you stop paying for those services, then you don't own the thing.
Exactly. That is what I hate about this kind of idea, is because as soon as you say no,
I'm not doing that,
you lose it.
That's it. So a good example, going back to our physical media, if you have a streaming service where you are renting your films, you say, I can see this film whenever I want. I can watch this new TV series that's just come out.
I can binge watch it one evening,
done. And then you say, well, actually, I've got to cut back. I've got to cut back. So I'm being forced to cut back. I need my mobile phone for work, so I'm going to have to keep that. I'm just going to have to get rid of some of the luxury, so I'm afraid the streaming services go.
Got to go.
Then you all the movies and everything you've been watching, you don't own them. You can't watch them anymore.
One of the biggest things on this point is the idea that you can buy a movie so you can watch it as many times as you want.
Oh yes, you can buy a movie on a streaming service. It says buy or rent.
Yeah, but you don't own that movie. You're just buying the right to watch it as much as you'd like.
Yeah.
In which sense, if you stop said subscription,
you can't access it. That's gone.
It's gone. Your right to that movie is gone, despite you paying for it.
Exactly.
Even on a bigger scale now, it has become increasingly prevalent that on certain streaming services, particularly big ones, I'm going to say it, Disney, all right?
Okay, Disney, yep.
There is an ever-increasing notion that they're actually removing stuff.
Yep.
And sure, you think, okay, worst case scenario, I could resort to the physical media purchases and everything on that. However, these are streaming exclusives.
Right.
So they ain't not coming out.
Oh, I see. You mean right. So if you're watching something like, I think Mandalorian has come out, hasn't it?
Mandalorian has come out as a deluxe limited edition, so they can squeeze that money out of you just so you buy the Steelbook 4K. That's what they're bringing out. There's no cheaper version. There's no DVD. There's no Blu-ray.
But that is kind of the consumer. That's the whole point of capitalism and consumerism. Is
but it seems so outdated.
You're being sold a product, and of course they'll wet your whistle, and you say you want to buy it. I need that. Yeah, they want you to need it.
Throwing a random title in there. Godzilla vs Kong. Right. If I wanted that on DVD. Bog standard, cheapest thing I can get, I could get that.
Okay.
If I say I'm a film buff, I want the standard Blu-ray, cool, I can get that.
Okay.
If I want the 4K, sure, I can get that. I can get the Steelbook Collector's Edition, I can get that if I want to pay that kind of almost premium price for it, but it's still not breaking the bank. I can get the box set of all the MonsterVerse films. No problem at all. 4K, deluxe special editions, whatever.
Okay.
However, with Disney and Mandalorian, Star Wars stuff, Kenobi, Andor, etc., Marvels, Captain whatever, Winter Soldier and all that jazz, all these kind of exclusive series that were initially done as exclusives, that's where you're going to see them. The only option is buy the super duper deluxe collector's limited edition Steelbook 4K box set.
A premium price, I take it.
At the premium price. So the base price for any of these box sets that I've seen, Amazon, Zavi, HMV, wherever, we're talking like just shy of 50 quid.
Ouch.
Per season.
Ouch, okay.
Mandalorian 3 seasons, just paying over 100 quid.
Oh, okay.
For 3 box sets.
For 3 box sets. Obviously, that's.
I don't know even that good.
that's made you squeal a little bit. That's right.
And I haven't bought them yet.
No. So what you do is you have the what's it called, the fear of missing out.
FOMO.
Yeah. So what you've got, if you've also got a society which is basically living in this 15-minute bubble and they own nothing and are happy, you basically are also putting upon those individuals that FOMO feeling that I must have this, otherwise I'm missing out.
Yeah.
And it works right away down to the kids, because the kids, if they go to school and they say, you haven't got Disney, you haven't got this, you haven't got that, you're the odd one out.
On that level, I probably experienced this quite a lot growing
up. Probably happens at work as well, around the coffee machine.
And
you mean you don't have Netflix? You haven't been watching Love Island? I don't know.
In this sense, I don't want to watch that.
No.
In this sense, probably for the kid-wise, what I experienced was obviously the gaming stuff.
Yep.
Obviously, I grew up. I did eventually get a PS3 and love that console to pieces. That was like obviously, subsequently PS4s came out. Yep. I didn't get into that. I was just stuck.
No, we didn't.
No, we skipped to the PS5 now. It's over there. But again, going back to the subscription aspect.
Yeah, because
playing online on PS3 completely free.
Completely free.
All you needed was PlayStation account.
That's it.
No subscription required.
If you had a friend on the other side of the world, you could play with them.
You could play with them. Now
It's subscription.
a subscription-based thing for the same thing that's free on an older console.
Yeah.
That does feel a bit of a cash grab, and it did take a few years to actually get invested in.
So let's talk about the cash grab. When it comes to capitalism as well, and I'm not going to get into capitalism, socialism, and communism or any of those isms. Okay, but let's just look at one factor or one part of capitalism is you have what's called disaster capitalism, and that's when you have a disaster, companies and businesses and rich people will jump in there to make money. Okay, if stocks fall, people with money will buy up cheap stocks at that time to make money as the stocks rise again and buy it cheap, sell it high and all that stuff. I think there's cases where there's been disasters out in Indonesia and places with flooding and things, and farmers have been literally farmlands destroyed and everything else, and then companies have come in and bought the land at cheap price, and instead of having the farms that were there before, then they build luxury hotels,
factories, things like that,
for tourists to come in and stuff like this, you see, and employ what were the farmers and things as being the service personnel in those places. And it's the same with the pandemic. I bet you 10 to 1 loads of companies literally made buckets of money out of that disaster capitalism aspect.
Well, a very big one on that front would obviously be the home delivery kind of sector.
Home deliveries.
Amazon, I think the profits and things, I have no official figures on that, but it's very blatantly obvious that must have boomed.
Yes, and don't even talk about PPE.
Well,
companies that were doing that stuff. The point is, when there's a disaster, and it goes war to take Ukraine and things. I don't know exactly the ins and outs of. Obviously, countries, Great Britain, America, places supplying weapons and things. Those weapons have got to be supplied. Those weapons have probably become, whether they ever get paid for or not, or whether it becomes national debt for Ukraine, or whenever there are conflicts around the world, say with obviously. With what's happening in the Middle East at the moment, things, then there are businesses out there, arms companies, arms dealers that are making money out of what is basically disasters. So that is a dark side of capitalism, but it's there, and on the opposite side, if you have somebody who starts a business, say it's a coffee shop that was never there before, and that person starts a coffee shop and they employ half a dozen people in that coffee shop, then those people that have got those jobs have now got a job that can pay their subscriptions and can pay their rent and everything else. It's capitalism that way isn't a bad.
It's kind of an odd state of affairs, because one way you can say, oh, that's exploitative and all that jazz, but in another way it could be the kind of, this is actually providing a better life, this is helping.
Well, again, it's
a matter of perspective, isn't it?
It is a very difficult thing. We could depend on which way you want to look at it. Whether you want to look at it from a sort of like, you could say that the 15-minute bubble and the own nothing and be happy is a very socialist way of doing it, because if everybody is kind of equal, then you would assume this is kind of like almost like a Star Trek utopia kind of world.
Okay.
But it also has the smatterings of that Demolition Man world, where on the surface everybody's equal, everybody's living this.
Honestly, this is a side note, but I watched Demolition Man. It must have been a month or two ago at the cinema, and that has taken on a whole new meaning for me.
Underneath,
you've got to go watch it.
Yeah, but underneath, you've got all the people that haven't got anything.
Yeah, you got the people that said no.
Yeah, the people that said no.
It's that line between almost exploitation and support. But where are you sitting on that scale?
But that's one of the big problems.
Oh, yeah, the people making the decision, or the people that are feeling the effects of the said decisions. I don't know.
So what we're talking about is the conspiracy theory. The whole point of the New World Order, the whole point of the Great Reset, it was and is a thing that has been spoken about by the World Economic Forum. It is a thing that kind of, I assume, is being slowly put in place and has been, they were talked about as being a golden opportunity because of the pandemic to start to initiate this protocol and everything else. But nothing really has changed, has it? We've had the pandemic. We're not here as we're doing this podcast, sitting here in a 15-minute city. We're not sitting here where we are renting everything and own nothing, you know?
Well, so I look at the things in this room. This is what I own.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm happy with the things I own.
Yes, exactly. You're happy with the things you own. And we'll touch upon that a bit later on. But the thing is, nothing has in reality really happened. But these very, very wealthy companies, these very, very rich people, do make money out of disaster capitalism.
Yeah.
They do want to push society in the direction of the own nothing and be happy, because when you think about it, if you've got your loyal employees that are working for your business to cover all their overheads because they have to, and then outside of that you give them things like, you know, bars to go to, football, sports and things to go to watch, holidays to have, to make them feel that they've got something in their life to live for. You can get into this cycle where you literally got people, these hamsters on the hamster wheels,
turning the cogs
all the time in order to get those little moments of pleasure, those little moments that I've worked all year for this holiday. This is my holiday. This is it. But you still have to say to yourself, if you lived in that kind of society where you actually physically own nothing, you have to keep paying for everything all the time.
Yeah.
And if you're stuck in that cycle, I actually find that more of a nightmare scenario. Whereas I can see other people looking at it and thinking, other people up the chain of command, if you like, saying, well, this is great because we've got law and order, we've got people that are kind of like stuck in their zones, and they're doing what they need to do for them to survive and having their little moments of pleasure, making it feel like it's worthwhile. But you have to take a step back and say, is that what
I want?
Is that what life is about?
Yeah, exactly.
Is life about going to work, you know, from 9 to 5 for that morning and evening commute, busting your nuts,
just so I can
day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, to get to what? Because don't forget, you've also got paying to removing products and paying for services. You've also got the whole point of when you get to the other end of your life, you need to have accumulated something to live off, because the society we live in at the moment, if you are heading towards being a pensioner, in the UK you get a state pension. But if you are in rented accommodation, that state pension is not going to afford you the rent as they are at the moment. So you've got to think, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? There's people that have lived in their houses or flats or apartments or wherever for many, many years, paying, but don't own it. But when you get to that point where you retire, have I got enough money to stay here? It's
continuing that point about renting and things. I don't have a problem with people that need to find themselves in that situation and they need to, but it's a matter of sustainability on that front, because I don't want to get personal or anything, but I have known people that have pushed this idea of, I want to go and rent a place, but without really understanding the implications of such, especially to anything beyond themselves.
Well, I got to stop you there. I think some people have. You got to think about the social and family dynamic. Because some people are very much, I want to get out of my my home life. I want to get away from my parents. I want to be independent. And the feeling of being independent the only option they've got is to go and if obviously unless they've got an incredibly good job at a young age that they can actually get on the property ladder, which in this day and age in the UK is not an easy thing at all. And I think the government should and construction companies should build affordable first time buyer properties that people actually can buy at a really cheap, easy price. But that's a question for a discussion for another time. But their only option is to rent, and of course it's that inner need to have independence that actually at the end of the day costs them thousands of pounds a year just for that. But this is the thing about it is you don't own that property, and in order to rent that property, you spend most of your time out of the property working.
Yeah. In a property, you can't even repaint the walls. You can't hang a photo up without having to ask permission. Is that a home?
A lot of them won't even allow your pets, these days.
Exactly.
So you spend the majority of your time out of the property at work.
Yeah.
When you come home, you spend a very small amount of the time awake in that property, and then you might spend 6 to 8 hours asleep in the property, so you don't even you could appreciate the property, only to go back out to work again. You see, and so the majority of your life is it. And then when you get to have a holiday, you go away from the property. So for the sole reason of having that feeling of independence. So that is a decision. That's an individual's decision to do that.
It is, and
I suppose it depends.
In that sense, I am very lucky because I do get on with my parents' family. Yes. Like 100%.
We have a good family unit.
We're doing a podcast now. It's pretty cool.
And as your father, I would be very, very, very disappointed if you went out to rent a place for no other reason than to say, I want my independence. Yeah. Because all I'm going to see is you spending over the period of a year, because on average probably £1,000 a month these days, anything between £700 cheap to £1,000 for you to have somewhere.
I know.
So you're going to be spending out thousands of pounds a year, and every single pound you spend is just throwing money, just literally
throwing it in a well.
In a well, never to be seen. Flush it down the loo. You're not going to see it again.
Yeah.
Whereas as your parent, I'd rather you be here in your family home, putting that money into a bank. If you can afford that money to spend rent and to line other people's pockets, I'd rather you put that money into a savings account in order for you to purchase a property.
Yeah.
Because then you're buying a product, if you like, which you own. Yeah. The collateral money is still within that property, and not a penny of your money has been wasted.
No.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what I prefer to see.
But
if you decided you want your independence, you want to go and fritter your money away, that's your decision, not mine.
I've got examples, but I'm not going to go into them. Yeah. But it's a grueling thing that.
But a lot of people are
people I have known have literally been spending their inheritance money on just on renting, and that just seems so wrong.
I've known I've got
that seems so wrong to me.
We had a mutual friend that left a large sum of money as a deposit on a property, and they just frittered it away on rent. And 5 years down the line, I've got nothing. Yeah, and it's gone. So anyway, but that's the thing. So
it's a choice.
You can understand that, but let's not get too distracted from what this podcast is about. It's about the Great Reset, and that's the issue. Because if you build a society that has been reset into this, you'll own nothing and be happy, that means that people get trapped in that cycle.
Exactly.
You haven't got the option.
You can't choose because you've made your choice.
Every property,
you're locked in.
If every property that was built only to be rented. Yeah. If every property that is independently owned over a period of time was bought off, knocked down and rebuilt as rent onlys, you can see where you'd be in a...
Then you have that lack of choice. That choice is taken away from you.
But you have that kind of... how can you put it? It's very difficult because it's almost like that Star Trek utopia, if you look at it from one direction. Yeah. Everybody is living in this happy dot bubble society, dot and bubble.
Logan's Run.
Logan's Run, maybe, yeah, kind of.
Kind of, it's like it's enclosed.
But you are going to have issues because you're going to have people at the end of the line. I think that they're going to have issues. You're going to have people that literally can't cover their costs, and society. You're going to say, "Do I really want these people in my 15-minute city?" We need to push them out.
Yeah. When does it come that kind of bubble of support and help and everything? When does that suddenly?
But ultimately,
it's off?
All those huge, big companies, all those big, vastly rich and wealthy people that are making money out of that system.
Yeah.
And then if you do have disaster situations and they can make even more money, it's the little hamsters that are going at it all the time. So that's what the Great Reset conspiracy is all about. Yes, it is a thing because it was really spoken about by the World Economic Forum. But is that a mask for a sort of deeper, more sinister thing, which is what a lot of the people have surmised why it's become known as a conspiracy theory? Or is it something that is meant to be for the good of the whole?
Yeah.
Well, which just leaves us with, what if you don't want to be part of that? I suppose. There's two things that are happening now. I said earlier, nothing's really happened, but things are happening because we've already said people are doing things like streaming services. People are renting cars. People are having to rent properties because they can't afford properties. People are...
The cogs are moving in this direction.
People are more and more having things that they pay for on a monthly basis because out of need,
Yeah.
And then with the introduction of AI, that all those things are going to be all part of this structure of this owning nothing and being happy society. But so what can you do if you don't want to be part of that? Okay, I don't know exactly. I've got no answers really, but all I can say is that if you don't want to be part of that dot and bubble society, that world, if you don't want to be part of that, and obviously living in the society we do at the moment, the only kind of way out of it, unless you're going to completely turn your back on it and somehow manage to get to live off grid.
Well, I was going to say that.
Which is very difficult, especially in the UK, because you can't even own a plot of land in the UK and live on it yourself without getting permission off your local council and having to pay your council tax on a monthly basis.
To prove that you can live sustainably.
Exactly. Well, you've got to do that, and you've got to pay for your... Obviously, there's got to be a certain thing. You need water, for example, unless you've got the permission to extract your own water from... I think there's all sorts of ins and outs of living off grid in the UK. You might be able to do it easier in places like United States, Canada, places like that. There's plenty of places in the world where they don't have the kind of restrictions that
Alaska,
we have. But that's the point. The amount of restrictions we have in the UK are there to stop you from doing those kind of things, because
that is not profitable.
That way you have to pay your council tax. That way you do have to pay your water services to that property and all the rest of it. But to take control as best as you can, the only way I can see in the UK of kind of doing it is you have to try and strive to be financially independent. And if you can be financially independent, so you don't have to buy into all these services, you don't have to rent because you've put all your what would have been rent money. If you can do it, if you work a plan out that's going to allow you to get your foot on the property ladder and buy bricks and mortar, so that you can say that is mine, because if you can buy a property, all the money you put into it, you're going to get back.
Exactly. Yeah. It's an investment.
It's an investment, but you're not going to spend it unless you're going to. When you get older, you're going to downsize or something like that. But the point is, you're not just flushing your money down the loo.
Yeah.
And then, if you look at other aspects in your life, like the streaming services and everything, they're all choices that we are kind of made to feel that we need.
Yeah.
And that you're something
like it's a basis for a standard of living.
Yeah. You mean you haven't got that? Oh dear. Yeah, you're different. Do I want to know you if you?
It's very odd. Some people's view of what is deemed as a suitable standard of living, and missing out on certain things.
Well, that's
like
the fear of missing out again.
That for some, like having a huge TV, it's not essential to have a massive TV with all the streaming services on it. But some people deem it thus that if they can't have that, they are living substandard.
Yeah, but that's when you get into another kind of hamster cycle, because there's lots of people that try and and I've said this before, don't try and keep up with the Joneses, because if you knew the truth, the Joneses are up to their neck in debt. So, but you get people that they want, if they got a bigger house or they want the posher car, I'm going to go instead of renting the new electric car, I'm going to buy a £70,000 electric car. I am going to go off to the Maldives on a £10,000 cruise, or I don't know what. They got the money to do that, but what they do is they then make themselves a kind of a level that they themselves are probably having to fund that lifestyle.
Yeah.
And anything goes wrong, they're in fear of falling off the shelf, if you know what I mean. So it's far better to say, actually, I don't need all this. I don't need all this, and I don't have to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
I'm finding happiness in not
in my life. In the way you live.
Not in what I want, but actually in what I've got.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very good mindset to have.
And one personal thing, our gas boiler basically died a death over 2 years ago. We were quoted at the time 2 years ago about £3,000 to have the new gas boiler fitted to the house, because obviously we had no heating and no running hot water in the taps.
Yeah.
And we said no.
Yeah.
We said no. We're lucky we live in the countryside and we do have a log burner in the cottage.
Yeah.
So all our heating came off the log burner, which I know some people out there are going to complain about, particle contaminants and all the rest of it, but we do use eco fuels and things. But you'd be surprised how much we don't actually need to use it. And we haven't used the log burner in weeks now, even though in England we've had fluctuating stuff. And as it comes to the hot water, we have an electric shower.
Yeah.
All the things like washing machine and stuff heats their own water. So the only thing we've missed out on is going to the kitchen sink or the bathroom sink and turning the hot water on. So what we do, if you really want a sink full of water, we just boil some on the stove.
Exactly.
And for 2 years, that meant that our gas bill has been, I think, about £16 a month, which is like, and it's because we've said no.
Yeah. And
we've actually just found that life is
fine.
But if we had the boiler connected, we'd be tempted to have the heating on when it got a little bit chilly. We'd make sure there's always a tank of hot water. We've saved huge amount of money by basically saying, actually, we don't need it. We don't miss it.
This is a legitimate example of what we're trying to say here.
It's because we like buck the system.
Whereas I know a huge, like, by comparison, a huge amount of people that would probably say the complete opposite.
Another family member actually said to me, "Aren't you embarrassed? What if Zak has friends to the house and they go into the bathroom and there's no hot water? Oh my God, I couldn't live with that. Oh no." It's like you're forced upon that idea, aren't you? Yeah, exactly.
It's a judgment, isn't it?
That's what we come back to, the social judgment of maybe, you haven't got an iPhone, or you've got some unknown branded telephone. You've got you don't have a streaming service. You don't have this. You don't have that. It's like So one has to kind of break through those social constraints and ease up a bit and go, actually, I am not going.
You know what?
Fall prey to it.
I am all right.
Yeah, you're all
exactly.
Right.
If you can say that, then you've won. Yeah. Essentially, you've won.
To round off, the Great Reset, it is a thing. I feel as if it is progressing slowly. Whether that's insidiously, I don't know, but it's something.
Well, that's what the conspiracy part is about, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the way the conspiracy theories were kind of like being hit with is that it's going to something that's going to happen overnight. You know, you're suddenly going to be forced into this society.
Yeah.
But what's happening is society didn't change overnight, that is, but it is changing. And as AI comes in and the need to live in a society with, obviously, you own nothing and you'll be happy. And then, you know, we talk about getting rid of cash and everything being cashless society and everything. This is all happening slowly. And of course, the younger generation coming up underneath us are getting used to that's the way life is.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And of course, the more
that's like the next generation, like after when I was born, it's very interesting the stark differences between me and people that are born after me.
The money makers in society know that, and then redirect their.
It's kind of like a society of dependence as well.
But that's what you want. If you have a society of dependence, then you have a society that, to a great extent, you can control.
Exactly.
You know, and that I don't think is a conspiracy theory. I think that is actually a fact. But whether you allow yourself to be controlled, or whether you break free of that and say, in my own way, I'm going to take control of my life in my bubble. As much as possible, that's down to the individual person.
Exactly.
But there are a lot of people who just are on that, either on the hamster wheel and don't know they're on the hamster wheel, or they're those people
they're
that
choosing
are,
to be.
Yeah, there's people that are choosing to be and are oblivious to it.
Yeah.
Okay, they'll do that every day because that's the way it is.
Because that's the way life is. Yeah.
But then equally, I think there's a lot of people that are stuck on that hamster wheel that really, really don't want to be
on it. Yeah.
But find no way out from it. So the Great Reset is a thing. It is happening. It will happen to a certain degree, I believe, as the years progress.
I suppose the crux of it really is the motivation behind it. Is it an insidious form?
Oh, you mean sort of controlled by the Illuminati?
Yeah. Is it that insidious notion that conspiracy theorists would put forward, or is it just a natural progression, a form of growth within a society?
I think society will grow, and if you're in a capitalist society, then the whole point is that you sell products. You want to sell the people the products because that's what makes you the money, and you want the people.
Success is the point to capitalism.
And you want the people to believe they need these products.
Because in the end, that makes you money.
It makes you money. And so the question would be, is the World Economic Forum there for the good of the population or for the good of their membership to earn more money?
Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, in that sense,
put your answers to that in the comments.
I am not planning on joining the World Economic Forum anytime soon.
Not £23,000 a year.
No. It'll be a very interesting podcast, though.
But I suppose, that's again, if you find joy in life, you find happiness in life without feeling that FOMO, without the fear of missing out. You're probably doing yourself the biggest favour.
Exactly.
You know, I drive an old banger of a car, and I've never bought a brand new car. Even if I could have afforded a brand new car, I would never buy one. The car I have been driving for the past 10 years cost me £800. You know, that was it. And I'm quite happy. One of the door handles is falling off inside. You know,
cracked
windscreen. You know. Thank you, Sarah, for that. But
we'll get you on the podcast again soon. Don't you worry.
But anyway, but the point is, I haven't run out and changed the windscreen because it's not it's not failing the MOT because it's over on the passenger side. The point is, I don't care that the vehicle's reliable and it's probably it's paid for itself again and again and again. I don't need to go and buy a brand new car.
Yeah, well, it works for you. It works for you and your lifestyle.
I have no desire for having a flash car,
having
to have to go
pointless Lamborghini or something.
Yeah, or something
a BMW.
Something I'm worried about scratching. You know, something like that. You know,
exactly. And it is that kind of like on the knife edge kind of living that kind of. Yeah.
And I certainly am not a person who has the personality that I, in any way, shape or form, think that I care what other people think of me.
Yeah.
Because in myself, I'm worrying about what other people might think of me, so I have to bring my I have to do.
You have to bring
things.
your A game to every situation.
Or I must have this because otherwise somebody will think that I'm lesser than what I should be. I don't care.
Exactly.
You know, I'm happy with
the ability to understand that and just be you.
Yeah,
to be honest,
just
be you.
I don't
It's
think
the best thing you can be.
Yeah. And on that leaves us with our little tail end part of the podcast.
Oh yes.
Which is Wisdom of the Week. And this, again, I always try and get these wisdoms of the week to be kind of sort of semi-connected.
Go on, hit me with your wisdom.
Okay. If a person cannot be calm for long, then they can't be happy for long, because happiness is found within calmness.
Okay, so one more time. That was quite a long one.
Okay. So if a person can't be calm for long, then they won't be able to be happy for long, because happiness is found within calmness.
Ooh. Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Well, I honestly, I should put some kind of compilation of all these wisdom of the weeks together.
Okay.
I should put it on YouTube and it'd be like, yeah, that's
go.
inspiration.
But anyway,
I like that.
So the Great Reset. Yes, it is.
It's time to take a recess.
It is a real thing. It has been talked about.
Yeah.
They are trying to put it into place. It's not going to happen overnight. It is happening. Society is slowly accepting things as it goes along. Whoever's listening to this, one day you'll be the old guard going, oh, I remember things when they were before this, while other people are walking around in this world of owning nothing and being happy. Happy little hamsters. There you go.
What do you think? We would love to hear your thoughts on the Great Reset. Are what we just talked about completely wrong? Our views, are they completely wrong? Do you think we are just talking a load of nonsense? What are your opinions on it? We would love to know. Please put them in the comments below.
I suppose that last thing, I keep saying the last thing, but that's the point. When it comes to conspiracy theories, some of them, like the flat Earth, I had to mention, are completely made up.
Yeah.
Where this isn't a made up thing, but it is pushed by people to be a bit more
serious,
cloak and dagger than it is.
Than it actually potentially is. Yeah.
But potentially, it is still going in a direction that personally I don't like. Yeah.
Well, that's the opinion part of it, isn't it?
That's your opinion. You might want to live in that kind of society where when AI produces the metaverse and you're putting your headset on first thing in the morning after you wake up and you spend the rest of the day in the metaverse to earn your money, and then you hate reality because you prefer your avatar in the metaverse, and your whole life revolves around that, then you might love that.
Pretty sure you kind of just described Wally.
Wally, yeah.
The floaty chairs. In the floaty chairs that do everything for you.
I think I've only seen that movie once. So
it's a good movie.
Yeah,
we'll have to watch it.
There you go. But anyway, otherwise you'll find me deep in a forest somewhere, sitting around a campfire, smelling the smoke and just enjoying myself.
One of the barbarians.
One of the barbarians. That's it. Otherwise you'll be
living rough on the wasteland
while Skynet takes over the rest of the world. There you go.
Anyway,
thanks for listening, everybody.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to this channel and comment below any suggestions of topics or activities you'd like to listen to in future episodes.
You can say goodbye.
Yes. That's a big something, I don't know what.
I'm going to say that's a big dystopian future goodbye from Buzz.
And that's a big totalitarianistic society goodbye from Zach.
Goodbye.
You can find the Now We Know Show podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music and Apple Podcasts. Keep up to date with everything ZWP on Facebook and Instagram, or visit the Zak Wylde Productions website at www.zakwyldeproductions.com. And remember to join us on Patreon or become a YouTube member for early access content and exclusive episodes.